In this fortnight's episode, Austin Petersen is the Libertarian Donald Trump. What's in the news with stories on civil asset forfeiture being dumped, pornography as a public health hazard, and Microsoft fighting the U.S. government for privacy this time, a new segment called Crypto Corner on Shapeshift's hack, and a Herding Cats segment on the Free Coast Festival.
Welcome to The Lava Flow, channeling the flow of information to the libertarian, anarcho-capitalist, voluntarist, and agorist community. Find us at thelavaflow.com. Here's your host, Roger Paxton.
Thank you for joining me this week. Coming to you from the state where America's first white potato was planted, this is the show that will bring you the people, places, and events that everyone in the Liberty Revolution needs to know. You can catch me on Twitter at @TheLavaFlowPod. This is episode 35, the Libertarian Trump Edition, and it's Tuesday, April 26th, 2016, when there have been more than 321 people killed by police already this year. What's wrestling my jimmies this week? You're about to find out. Let's do it to it. Austin Petersen is not only the youngest of the candidates for president in 2016, he is also the most childish in a very bad way. Let's be clear right up front. Austin Petersen is, in some ways, a very good candidate. He's also very libertarian in many ways. He has a longer pedigree with the Libertarian Party than both Gary Johnson and John McAfee put together. And he actually talks like a real small L libertarian most of the time. Philosophically, on most of the issues, Austin and I are very close. He's well-spoken, clean-cut. He held his own very well in the John Stossel debate, and Austin even put Gary Johnson on the defensive about the Nazi cake by hammering him on it. Before the Stossel debate, I was 100% against Petersen. I'm not 100% against him anymore. Now it's more like 99% against him. My biggest issue with his debate performance was his very wooden and rehearsed sounding style. It was clear that he was working very, very hard to get quick sound bites out instead of being genuine. In his defense, though, debates are basically theater, and he seemed to be playing to that, but I just don't feel like it came off very well. My issues with Austin are that he is basically an internet troll writ large and in real life. His personality, his comments, his stirring up of shit constantly is just petulant. He is like an anthropogenic representation of Facebook. It started long before his presidential run with his terrible website, which I am not going to name here because I wouldn't wish a visit on it to my worst enemy. And his silly podcast that, thank God, seems to have gone the way of the dodo. I've been anti-Petersen for a long time, pretty much ever since he started his one-man campaign against the non-aggression principle, the same principle that he has to sign to become a member of the Libertarian Party. He even said on Facebook that if you accept the NAP, you are not a libertarian. What? My issues with him became even stronger when he posted an article on his site titled, quote, 5 Reasons Why I'm Not an Anarchist, and goes on in that article to commit several logical fallacies and essentially misrepresent anarchism and show himself for the status that he is. He also showed his fundamental misunderstanding of basic human rights. Look, it would be one thing to logically debate a topic like anarchism or the NAP, but to be so childish in his behavior is where I draw the line. I don't give his thinking any credence when he uses these type of tactics, and no one else should either. We should not reward these sort of comments and tactics. As I mentioned earlier, he is an internet troll writ large. Here are just a sample of some of his confirmed comments on Facebook and other social media. Quote, I'm not saying the non-aggression principle is wrong because it's stupid. That would be a logical fallacy. I'm saying it's wrong and the non-aggression principle is stupid. Quote, well, it's lies from top to bottom, as to be expected from the losertarian caucus. You'll all be out on the streets after my victory in Orlando, rest assured. Quote, I don't take crap from losers like you. Quote, "You tubby piece of shit. You couldn't even approach 1/4 of the pyramid of pussy that I swim in on a regular basis. It's because I have class, motherfucker." Quote, "Suck it up, buttercup." Quote, "Low testosterone as evidenced by his spindly frame." Quote, "LOL, neckbeard." Quote, "If I wanted your opinion, I would ask for it. Otherwise, cram it." Now tell me, is this the sort of guy that we want representing the Libertarian Party in 2016? Of course not. Now that we know what he says about libertarians who don't support him, what does Austin have to say about the candidates that he's running against? Does he even have any respect for them at all? He called Steve Kerbell sleaze and the lowest of the low. McAfee, according to Peterson, is nothing more than a drug addict. Johnson is a low-energy drug dealer. Okay, well, that one's true, but that's beside the point. And as I mentioned, Austin is always trying to stir shit up, and generally with a lot of lies and mistruths. He has been caught outright lying on several occasions in this campaign. The first was when he illogically claimed that the Gary Johnson campaign had bought up all the hotel rooms at National Convention Hotel to intentionally block out Peterson supporters. Peterson's quote on Facebook, quote, "Johnson's campaign bought every spare hotel room in the convention center to deny us access." He said this without a shred of evidence and nothing to back it up. People who have gone back to fact check this have found it laughable. Not to mention, why would a campaign spend what would be potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars on a race that they are likely going to win on the first ballot? It just makes no sense. Austin also made false claims against the McAfee campaign later by saying McAfee's campaign manager quit, in part because Johnson apparently just received an enormous donation from a special interest. Again, no evidence to back it up. Nobody considers it credible. It's just a total lie. McAfee's campaign manager did step down as campaign manager, yes, but he is still 100% on the staff of the McAfee campaign. He essentially took another, less demanding role with the campaign. He needed to step down to spend time on some other things, and it had nothing to do with Johnson. Peterson has also gone on record as saying that Ron Paul, quote, "sounds like he hates America," and that Ron Paul is a Soviet apologist. These are the tactics of a desperate man who has no morals. And it is clear that he has no morals with his utter rejection of the underlying moral principle of libertarianism. He may act like a libertarian and talk like a libertarian, but the man is no libertarian. Austin Peterson also has an adulthood problem. These comments and these tactics are things that I would expect from a 20-year-old, but a 35-year-old? Come on. Peterson deserves neither respect nor consideration for the LP nomination. He's a less relevant, weaker version of Trump, insulting, denigrating, and just a massive asshole. Although he does have better hair than Trump. If Peterson doesn't end up dead last in this presidential race, then the LP has proven that it is still the party of Bob Barr, and that's not a good thing. So this leaves me with two candidates left. Yes, there are more candidates, but I have chosen to only do the top four, as they seem to be the only candidates with any traction and support at this point. I'll follow this one up with John McAfee and Darryl Perry over the next two episodes. Once I've done all four of these candidates, I'm going to take some time to put all of these four segments together into a single podcast along with my final endorsement. At this point, I still don't know who I'm going to officially endorse, so I'm as anxious as anyone for that. Have you subscribed to the Lava Flow on iTunes or any mobile device yet? Then what's wrong with you? Go to thelavaflow.com/subscribe so you don't miss a minute of the show. And while you're subscribing, make sure to leave me a 5-star rating and review the show to help others find our podcast. thelavaflow.com/subscribe.
What's in the news? The news you need to know from a libertarian perspective.
In less state theft news, Nebraska Governor Pete Ricketts signed a bill that eliminates civil asset forfeiture, which allows law enforcement to seize and keep property without filing charges or securing criminal convictions. The newly signed law provides sweeping reforms. First and foremost, Nebraska now requires a criminal conviction to forfeit property. Imagine that. The accused must be convicted of an offense involving illegal drugs, child pornography, or illegal gambling to lose their cash, vehicles, firearms, or real estate. This officially makes Nebraska the third state, behind North Carolina and New Mexico, that is largely without civil asset forfeiture, or as I like to call it, legal theft. Unfortunately, though, the law does not rectify the state's incentive to steal property. Since 1984, the state's constitution allows for 50% of drug forfeiture funds to go directly to law enforcement, while the other half goes to schools. Since 2011, agencies have received over $3 million from forfeiture procedures, meaning more than $6 million of property was actually stolen from people. The ACLU in Nebraska says, quote, significant amounts of money have been seized through the state system from people who have never been charged with a crime. Thankfully, that will no longer be the case. This also does nothing to deal with equitable sharing laws, which allow state and local agencies to steal property under federal law and receive up to 80% of the proceeds. Between 2000 and 2013, Nebraska law enforcement stole $48 million in federal forfeiture funds, with 889 cash seizures, quote, from people who were not charged with a crime and without a warrant being issued since 9/11. So while things are a bit better in Nebraska now, until the federal carrot is removed in this equitable sharing deal, all of us are still in danger of being stolen from by our rulers at any time. In a miserable place to live news, the state of Utah has proclaimed in a resolution that pornography is, quote, a public health hazard. While there is no force involved in this resolution yet, it is still a frightening indication of the power of government to define anything as they see fit. Quote, this is a $7 billion industry, Utah Senator and the resolution's chief sponsor Todd Weiler said. Quote, help us protect children from your evil, degrading, addictive, harmful substances. If adults want to do that, that's their choice. But we're talking about developing adolescent minds of our nation's future. So, in other words, let's do it for the children. Just a tip, if you ever hear, let's do it for the children, grab your wallet, because somebody's coming for it. Quote, what we should be concerned about is not adult entertainment or sexuality, but with bills like this that traffic in shame and censorship, said Mike Stabile, the Free Speech Coalition's communications director. We should live in a society where sexuality is spoken about openly and discussed in nuanced and educated ways and not stigmatized. We all should work together to prevent non-adults from accessing adult material, said Stabile. Also signed into law was a related bill that sets new reporting standards for computer technicians who found child pornography in the course of their work. Under that measure, failure to do so could result in a penalty. So if I lived in Utah, this would make me a criminal overnight if I find something objectionable on my company network and only report it to my boss, instead of reporting it to the police. I'm now required to be an expert in age identification to know the nuance of someone who may only be 17 as opposed to 18 and report that to the police. This is just bullshit. In Now We Can Bomb More Innocent Brown People news, the Pentagon has approved airstrikes that risk more civilian casualties in order to destroy ISIS targets as part of its increasingly aggressive fight against the militant group in Iraq and Syria, according to interviews with military officials and some data. Since last fall, the Pentagon has delegated more authority to the commander of the war, Army Lieutenant General Sean McFarland, to approve targets when there is the risk that civilians could be killed. Previously, authority for missions with the potential to kill innocents had been made by the higher headquarters of U.S. Central Command. Seeking approval from above takes time, and targets of fleeting opportunity can be missed. Apparently, there's a sliding scale of probable civilian casualties based on the value of the targets and the location. For example, a strike with the potential to wound or kill several civilians would be permitted if it prevented ISIS fighters from causing greater harm. Before the change, there were some limited cases in which civilian casualties were allowed, the official said. Now, however, there are several targeting areas in which the probability of 10 civilian casualties are permitted. Those areas shift depending on the time, location of the target, and the value of destroying them, the official said. This is just insane. Are we as a country, and in my name, and using my stolen money, really trying to make it easier to kill innocent people? People who have never harmed us? Men, women, and yes, children. If this doesn't make your stomach churn, then I don't know what will. Not in my name. In Microsoft versus the U.S. government news, Microsoft wants a federal judge in Seattle to strike down a law that allows courts to prohibit a tech company from telling customers that the government has sought their data. In a civil suit filed Thursday against the Justice Department, the tech giant revealed that, in the past 18 months alone, federal courts have issued almost 2,600 orders preventing Microsoft from alerting customers that their data has been obtained in criminal probes. Notably, more than two-thirds, about 1,750 orders, had no fixed end date. Quote, "This means that we are forever barred from speaking, and our customers are forever barred from hearing that the government has accessed their email or other content," said Brad Smith, Microsoft's president and chief legal officer. Quote, "So this matters to people and the rights that all of us are entitled to enjoy under the Constitution." The secrecy orders issued under the law in question, which is part of the Electronics Communication Privacy Act, violate customers' Fourth Amendment right that a search be reasonable, the firm alleged. The law also violates Microsoft's First Amendment right, the company alleged, to talk to its customers and discuss how the government conducts investigations. And that's absolutely right. I applaud Microsoft for this, although I suspect it is partly due to wanting to get in on the massive news that Apple has recently been the focus of, where they stood up to the FBI by refusing to create a tool to break into all iPhones. As I said about Apple, I don't really give a shit what Microsoft's motivation is, whether it be that they are truly concerned about privacy of our data, or they are just hoping to look good to customers for sticking up for their privacy. Either way, the end result is the same. Companies with mega bucks spending some of that money to help bring all of us more security and privacy. Bravo. Exercise your free market muscles by going to thelavaflow.com/support and giving a per episode donation of as little as $1 an episode, or use Bitcoin. Get exclusive content, rewards, and help the Lava Flow become fiscally neutral while providing you more content. thelavaflow.com/support. Crypto Corner. Welcome to a new segment of the Lava Flow podcast that I will be calling Crypto Corner. This is where I will talk about news items relating to cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin, Ethereum, Dash, and others. This first segment, we're going to talk about the latest happenings with Shapeshift.io, a tool that I've used a lot. If you don't know, Shapeshift is a site and app that allows you to convert various cryptocurrencies on the fly. Whether it be from Bitcoin to Dash, or Ether to Litecoin, or anything in between. For a while there, they had literally dozens of cryptocurrencies available that you could convert from and to. A couple of weeks ago, Shapeshift went completely offline due to a security breach. Shapeshift CEO Eric Voorhees has been completely open and transparent about what has been going on with the company since the shutdown, and has now released a very long article detailing what happened. Essentially, the security breach all began from an internal employee that Voorhees calls Bob in his article. Shapeshift hired Bob as an infrastructure manager, and he worked with the company for several months building new infrastructure before this incident. On March 14th, Bob stole 314 Bitcoin from Shapeshift, roughly $130,000 worth, and then just leaves the company, leaving behind a pretty easy-to-follow trail that led right back to him. They filed suit against him in an effort to get the money back, and of course they fire him. You would think that would be the end of it, right? You'd be wrong. Shapeshift did what anybody would do in that situation. They built new infrastructure, assuming that their old infrastructure had been compromised since it was built by Bob. Before they even brought up the new infrastructure, a bunch of Ethereum, Bitcoin, and Litecoin all went missing from some of their wallets on this non-public brand new infrastructure. Impossible, right? Bob has no information into this new infrastructure, so Shapeshift's only conclusion was that the cloud company itself must be compromised. So they shut everything down and dug in. They found the owner of the wallets where the stolen loot was moved, likely false information, but they sent him an email anyway, and he responded, saying that he was able to hack them due to, quote, one word, Bob. So Shapeshift busts ass with entirely new infrastructure on a new set of cloud services, and they get hacked for a third time, losing even more Bitcoin and Ethereum. So Shapeshift decides to buy information from the hacker to see how they can fix their vulnerabilities. They paid him 2 Bitcoin and found out that while Bob was stealing from them, this hacker was also actively trying to hack them. The hacker reached out to Bob and bought information from him, gaining information and essentially a backdoor into everything through a remote desktop session on another staff member's laptop. This is how the hacker continued to be able to hack them even after their infrastructure was completely changed. He could access everything through that laptop, the entire infrastructure, anytime he wanted, and no matter where the infrastructure was in the cloud. What a fucking mess. Thankfully, Shapeshift was able to get back some of their money, and they're suing Bob for some more, but this is a pretty big financial hit for what is essentially a startup company. I've used Shapeshift several times, and I can tell you how much of a pain in the ass it would be not having them around. Currently, they now have infrastructure backup, allowing conversion between Bitcoin and a handful of other cryptocurrencies, including Ethereum, Dash, and Litecoin, with more to come back online soon. One thing that's a great takeaway from this for anybody who is in a startup, especially in the wild, wild west of cryptocurrency, take a page from Eric Voorhees and be as transparent as Shapeshift has been during this process. They posted several blog posts with details and information through this entire ordeal and kept the public informed. This is how you handle business communications. Thankfully, customers' money was never in any danger because of the way that Shapeshift set their infrastructure up. Only Shapeshift's money was lost. That's bad enough, though. I hope Shapeshift comes back from this stronger than ever and continues to be a power player in the cryptocurrency market.
Herding cats. Don't let anybody tell you it's easy.
Anybody can herd cattle. Holding together 10,000 half-wild short hairs, well, that's another thing altogether.
Being a cat herder is probably about the toughest thing I think I've ever done.
There are usually 4 major events in New Hampshire every year. 2 of these are official Free State Project events, Liberty Forum in the winter and the Porcupine Freedom Festival, better known as PorcFest in the summer. There are also 2 unofficial FSP events, Keenvention and the Free Coast Festival, although Keenvention has been canceled for this year. This year, my wife and I have been asked to help plan the 3rd annual Free Coast Festival, and we're going to have a hell of a time there for you. The Free Coast Festival is billed as an opportunity for our local Liberty community to come together and for prospective movers to see what life is really like on New Hampshire's seacoast. And it truly will be just that. The festival will kick off on Thursday, September 16th with our regular weekly meetup. Every week in the Free Coast, we have a revolving Liberty meetup in one of the 5 major cities of the area, going to Dover, Exeter, Hampton, Portsmouth, and Rochester. Since the Rochester meetup falls on that Thursday, we've decided to do it up really nice and hold it at the Revolution Tap Room and Grill. We're renting out the entire back room of the place, which has dartboards, pool tables, couches, and a comfortable ambiance, which allows you to mingle and talk the night away with the drink or drinks of your choice. On Friday, the festival begins in earnest with an event at the Coat of Arms pub in Portsmouth with food, drinks, and friends. This will be a meet and greet type event to really kick off the festivities. Saturday, we'll have the festival at Stone Church Pub in Newmarket, a pub that has craft beer and awesome food. There'll be a long panel of speakers for this event from 10:30 to 2:30 while everybody eats, drinks, and lives free. Even yours truly will be on stage for one of those sessions, so they must be desperate for speakers, right? But in all seriousness, this is going to be a hell of an event, and you don't want to miss it. Saturday night brings what is the climax of the weekend. Last year, there was a short cruise on the ocean on a small boat, but it sold out very quickly, so several people missed the boat, so to speak. This year, they've really stepped it up with a much, much longer cruise on a much bigger boat. It's going to be a 3-hour tour reminiscent of Gilligan's Island, but hopefully without the shipwreck. There will be a very fine meal and a bar on the boat, along with the keynote speaker's address and time to mingle and talk to the keynote speaker and everybody else. We're still working on nailing down our keynote speaker, but you will not be disappointed, that I can assure you. Then, after the cruise, everyone will be going back to the Praxium in Portsmouth. The Praxium is a membership-based flexible use space for entrepreneurs and liberty events. It's a great space that will have more mingling and drinking through the night. Sunday, we'll have an entrepreneur event where you can pitch your ideas and have them viewed and rated by all in attendance. Last year, the winner of that event received a full Bitcoin. We aren't sure yet what the prize will be this year, but it is sure to be pretty cool. So dust off your ideas and get ready to present it at the Fricos Festival. I'm super excited about this event. I had to miss this event last year by one weekend because my interview for my job up here was the weekend after Fricos Festival. So I really can't wait to actually hit this event this year, especially since I am a part of the Fricos now. I hope to see you guys there too. Thank you for listening to the show this week. As always, I need to thank my couch surfing partner, Jessica, for her help with the show. For the show notes to this episode, where I put links and other information that's been on this show, go to thelavaflow.com/35. I have 3 new iTunes reviews this week. First, from Subject 294. Awesome. I love this podcast. Listen to it every week at work. I'd suggest this to any of my ANCAP, voluntarist, or agorist friends, and I actually have. Subject, this is exactly why this show keeps growing month over month, because folks like you tell their friends about the show. Thank you so much. The next review is from I'm a Tomcat. Smart, well thought out podcast. I just listened to this podcast after finding it through liberty.me. Roger is an intelligent, well-spoken host. I will be adding the Lava Flow and listening to it on a regular basis like I do with the Tom Woods Show. Thanks, I'm a Tomcat. I'm so glad that you found me on Liberty.me, and thanks for the great review. Liberty.me has been running my podcast on their stream since nearly the beginning of the podcast, and I appreciate them doing that. You should go check out Liberty.me. So first there was I'm a Tomcat, and now my next review is from Maxim Cat. What's with all the cats today? Quote, do yourself a favor. Give this podcast a go. You'll thank yourself. There are 3 people I always look forward to hearing speak about today's important topics. Jason Stapleton, Tom Woods, and Roger Paxton. If you're looking to hear more than a 3-minute soundbite with no in-depth review, turn off the TV and download the Lava Flow podcast. I couldn't agree more. Wow. Thanks, Maxim Cat. You put me in a list with some heavy hitters there. And that reminds me, a few months ago, Jason Stapleton reached out to me about advertising his show on the Lava Flow. And, I've told you guys from the very beginning that I will never run ads on this show. So I had to turn him down, but, it sure felt good for one of the big names to come to me looking to advertise. I'm still waiting on that call from Tom Woods, though, but I'll let you know. And I can't thank all of you enough for all of your reviews. iTunes steers people to this podcast based on the number of subscribers and the number of positive reviews. So every review that you give me helps this show get further out there. Go to thelavaflow.com/iTunes today and give me a rating and a review. Thank you. I also have a new supporter this week. Jake is now supporting the show at the $2.50 per episode level through Patreon. Thank you so much, Jake, for helping me get closer to bringing you more content every week. And if you, like Jake, want more of the Lava Flow and to keep this show ad-free, exercise your free market muscles by going to thelavaflow.com/support and giving a per-episode donation of as little as $1 an episode using Federal Reserve notes through Patreon or Bitcoin through Coinbase. There are monthly costs associated with doing the show, web hosting, media hosting, and things like that, and I need additional equipment to continue making the show better for you every single episode. I'm now at a total of $77 per episode. Finally, over 3/4 of the way to my first goal. I only need an additional $23 per episode to bring you more content every week. Thanks to everybody who contributes to the show. Until next time, keep striking the root.
Thank you for listening to The Lava Flow at thelavaflow.com. Don't miss an episode. Subscribe now at thelavaflow.com/subscribe. This has been a Pax Libertas Productions podcast.